All right, good afternoon. Today is July 29th and it's 3 p.m. and we are here at the Preparing to Bid session for painting services. My name is Tiffany Scroggs and I'm joined today by Trina Payton with the APEX Accelerator. And we do have a guest from the Department of Enterprise Services. Cedric Austin is here, who might be chiming in from time to time throughout. But welcome. We are here to talk about painting services statewide contract that is out now on the Washington Electronic Business Solutions page. And those of you who are on the line live, you're invited to introduce yourself in the chat. We'd love to get to know who is here today. I do have several slides. We're going to walk through maybe 20 or so slides and take questions along the way, as well as wait for questions at the end. So feel free to chat your question at any time. And if it's a good time, I'll go ahead and pause and take the question. Otherwise, we'll wait to the end. But we do plan to stay on the line and answer your questions afterwards. We'll go ahead and get going here. Let me make sure there's nobody else in the waiting room. Okay, great. So this is our agenda today. We'll talk a little bit about what the APEX Accelerator, where Trina and where I work, what we do. We'll talk a little bit about statewide contracts. We'll cover the solicitation history as we see it. We will review the actual live, ready-to-roll opportunity that's out now. We will provide you with a pre-bid checklist that's in your email about an hour ago, so check that email. We hope this section is interactive, and it would help if you had the checklist open as well as the solicitation. And then we'll talk about our tool that's known as a bid, no bid decision matrix, and we'll cover other resources for you. So a little bit about APEX, who I am, the company or the organization that Trina and I work with. We are a part of a nationwide network of organizations that are funded in part by the federal government. And our mission is to increase government contracts and subcontracts that are awarded to Washington firms. We have a pretty strong focus on helping small minority women and veteran-owned firms throughout the state. We have an amazing team of 15 or 17 advisors across the state, and they serve 1,400 businesses who go on to win millions and millions of dollars in government contracts each year. All of our services are offered at no cost to the businesses that we serve. This is a map of our team across the state. Many of you might already be connected to an advisor close to you. If not, I can go ahead and put into the chat a little later a link to our website where you can become a client and access the no-cost services there. A little bit about the difference between state government and the APEX accelerators. So let's start with who state government is in this solicitation situation now. So the state government is the official contracting officer, procurement professional. They are the only ones that are authorized to spend taxpayer dollars. As a result, they cannot help you bid. They must remain fair and impartial, and they can never be perceived or for realsies giving a competitive advantage over to another firm. The APEX, where Trina and I both work, is a nonprofit or at Green River College, and we are authorized to provide assistance or advising or counseling to businesses. We also do a number of training events throughout the year. So we can review your bid proposals and suggest improvements, but ultimately your bid proposal is yours that you submit on behalf of your company. Hopefully that helps clear up who's here in the room with us today. Let's talk a little bit about the who's who when it comes to state procurement. So this is important because it helps to identify who the decision makers are, and it will help avoid delays or miscommunication if you're listening to the wrong person for the wrong thing, right? So there's a title within state government called Enterprise Contract and Procurement Specialists. And for this particular solicitation, David and Julie are assigned that role. And these individuals have deep knowledge of procurement law. They write the solicitation, they draft kind of the strategy for buying the service or product. They receive your questions, they receive your complaints, they kind of process your bids and all of that. They are also referred to as procurement coordinators or procurement professionals or contract specialists. It's kind of all intermixed there. But these folks are the ones that are authorized to spend the taxpayer dollars. They cannot help you bid. And note that any questions that you ask them in the pre-bid meeting tomorrow or between now and the end of the Q&A period, if they answer that question, the question and answer will be published for all bidders to see. And that's part of that fair way of doing business that governments use. Keep in mind that in this particular solicitation, and all solicitations really led by the Department of Enterprise Services, DES is not the customer. The customer is going to be other state agency representatives that need the painting services, or they might be from a local government or from an institution of higher ed that's using this statewide contract to get the service that they need. So while in this case, David and Julie are not the customers, they are the ones in charge of the procurement. So I hope that kind of helps make sense. You're putting forth your proposal to become listed on the statewide contract for painting services so that other customers can go shopping. So hopefully that kind of clears it up. Continuing on with other roles and responsibilities, let's talk about the PIE team. Cedric is here today, and he's part of the Procurement, Inclusion, and Equity team at the Department of Enterprise Services. And their whole goal is to help the procurement professionals that we just talked about increase their spend with small and diverse firms. They also work really hard to enhance awareness about Department of Enterprise Services procurement policies. They set the policy for the whole state, as well as other statewide contract opportunities and that kind of thing. And they work to ensure that solicitations don't have barriers to small businesses. So if you identify a barrier that you want to talk to them about, their doors are always open. I want to mention WEBS. I already mentioned WEBS several times, but this is the Washington Electronic Business Solution. It is the authoritative source for where solicitations are put. You might have received the solicitation because I emailed it to you, which always makes me really nervous because I need you to get it from WEBS. Since WEBS is the only authoritative source. That's also important because WEBS is where they'll post amendments. And if you're not seeing the amendments, you can't be responsive to what the government needs. So we'll talk about WEBS in a little bit more detail in a minute. There's also other players, the Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprise and the Washington Department of Veteran Affairs. They're not here today, but they are big players in state procurement because they certify firms as public works small business or veteran-owned business or a number of other certifications. And then APEX, we are advisors. So hopefully that kind of gives you the lay of the land of who's who within state procurement. Let's talk about what's happening tomorrow at 1. So on July 30th, if you're watching this recording after July 30th, you missed the pre-bid conference, and it won't be recorded. So if you can attend on July 30th, we highly recommend. It's an opportunity for you to meet the buyer, meet that procurement coordinator and potential partners or competitors that are going to be interested in this solicitation. You can hear in this meeting which parts of the solicitation they emphasize. Typically, when people are speaking about solicitations, they use plain language compared to the written language that's in the solicitation. Like I said, it won't be recorded, so you have to attend live if you want the information. And we recommend that you ask questions. So you can better understand your competition, but by seeing like who's logged in to the team's meeting, and you can also kind of ask questions that will help you better understand the solicitation, but keep in mind that your competition's also hearing your question and answer. All questions asked in the pre-bid will be documented and then answered in the form of an amendment to the WEBS posting. So it's not mandatory. You can find the link in the solicitation document. It's tomorrow at 1, and we highly recommend that you attend. So let's dive into, oh, please, Trina.
No, I just wanted to add, it's a great way to partner and see who's really serious and aggressive about pursuing a spot on that contract, with it being a 5-year contract, and a lot of the state's paint-only work will likely be coming through that contract. It's serious consideration that a lot of people who feel that they can be competitive are going to designate that as a must-win and put their resources toward that. And that includes serious partnering arrangements. So if the chat is open, utilize that to make any contacts or partnering relationships that may fill in any gaps you have in your proposal.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and a lot of times the person running the pre-bid meeting will ask folks to use the chat for that feature, to introduce yourself and indicate that you're interested in meeting others on the chat. So that's a nice way to do it. Thank you. So solicitation history. So Department of Enterprise Services, they manage all these statewide contracts with over 2,000 vendors and $2 billion in annual spend. So a lot of activity. It's typically goods and services that the government buys on a regular basis. That's commonly purchased by local governments, state agencies, and institutions of higher education. So typically they don't issue a statewide contract unless they're expecting at least $1 million in spend to flow through it. And painting services is a new contract for the state of Washington. The procurement, it's my understanding that the laws around what is public works were recently clarified. Not that recently, but in the last few years, they were further clarified to distinguish between maintenance services and other types of public work. And so I think I might have a little bullet on that here, but this is kind of I think it's something that came out of that, where if the government agency just needs maintenance services in the form of painting maintenance services, they can come to a statewide contract to purchase that. They don't have to treat it like a public work and go through that procurement system. They can use the DES. So another example is flooring. The flooring solicitation is also out live now, and that's another new solicitation for DES to take on, is flooring installation, is that piece of it. Let's see. Oh, to that note, because it's new, my last bullet there, agencies, even within the state government, when state government agencies are required to use statewide contracts when they're available, it'll take time for the statewide agencies to become educated about that and to find their way to the contract. So we recommend a strong marketing strategy for your firm if you do get onto this statewide contract to help spread the word about this easy way to buy from you. So this solicitation, I think, actually launched in like 2022, but it was solicited in 2023 and again in 2024. And those solicitations, for whatever reason, didn't work. One of the major changes in that old solicitation was it combined the paint and the paint services. And now this new approach separates those two. So this one is just painting services. If you sell paint, have your eyes glued on webs, because we believe the paint solicitation will be out any second, and you can look at the planned procurement, take a look at that. Maybe Cedric knows when it's coming too. He tends to get inside scoop on that. But anyway, those are separate. So if you only sell paint, you can attend the pre-bid and kind of network here about how great your paint is, but ultimately your solicitation is going to be out later. So where do agencies get their painting services now? And so there's I mentioned like public works versus ordinary maintenance and how there's some clarity around those definitions, but essentially agencies can go to several different places. They can use the MRSC roster if their policy says so. They can use a job order contractor, which is in place now at some government agencies. And that's just like a prime contractor that subs out all of the work. So there's that. They can issue a competitive bid. They can post that on webs, or if they're not with state agency, they can still post on webs, or they can use a different portal. They can go through prime contractors. So like if the building is being remodeled, they might just task the prime with also figuring out the paint, and then that prime has to buy the painting services through them. Very common. And so lots of ways, I guess. And we have a whole like selling to local governments class that we do once a month that might be of interest to you, that dives more into the role that rosters play in opportunities for painting. But where I found this information, this last section of the slide here, it lists the awarding agency, the prime contractor, and a project name. And so this wasn't very scientific. I just did a Control F for anything that said paint. And then I pulled out a list, and this is through the Labor and Industries database. If you're providing painting services on a public job, thou shall pay public works wages, and thou shall alert L&I to that through the intents and affidavits form. So that information gets pulled into a database that we all have access to, which is pretty awesome. And so you can see here, the city of Kent hired Modern Painting Company to paint a shelter at Springwood Park, and it cost $8,200. It doesn't quite tell us how they solicited that information, but I bet if I went to the City of Kent website, I could kind of figure out how they typically buy that. But it looks like it was through a bid build process, a very traditional way of getting that done. So let's go ahead and fast forward in our brain to pull this list a year from now. So once the painting services contract is lit, I would imagine that that contract type field will also include buying painting services from the statewide contract. I would suspect, because right now it has the job order contract, it has the small works, but I don't know. We'll have to watch and see what that field does. So what's going to happen after award? First of all, pop the champagne. You won a statewide contract. Yay. You'll be listed on the statewide contract site, and I've provided the link. I'll go ahead and email these slides after today's presentation, and that link will be live. Then you have to implement your marketing strategy that we talked about earlier. If you don't have one, that's okay. We can help with that. And then you'll work with specific state and local agencies on specific work scopes. So when you're bidding this, you don't really know what the painting services will look like, and that's okay. That'll get all sorted out later when the agencies call you up to provide services. Regardless of whether or not you win any work whatsoever, you will report your sales to Department of Enterprise Services every quarter. And like I said, there's no guarantee that you'll get any work, which is always so sad. You put a lot of effort into getting on a statewide contract, and then you sit there and then nobody buys from you. And so again, back to that marketing strategy, your pricing strategy, etc. So it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's quite sad. All right, here's the current opportunity in webs. Hopefully you all have seen this. I just want to point out the customer reference number, which I always jot down, as well as the commodity codes. So keep in mind, webs is the only place you can go to find information about the solicitation. Even if I send it to you or Cedric sends it to you, don't trust it. You want to go to webs and get it from the authoritative source. And commodity codes are critical. This is how the state kind of describes your service. And so you want to make sure that your commodity codes match the type of work that you can do. And if you're not getting emails, that's a really good indicator that you're not active in webs, or your email is bad, or you're not in the right commodity code in the right region. So be sure that all of that lines up, and you'll be able to get the notifications from webs. Later on, if I were to be in webs and I'd scroll down, you could see the vendors that have downloaded the solicitation. There's quite a few already. And you want to see if your name is on there and if your status is correct, your status in terms of being a certified firm or a small business. If you want to double check your profile while you're in while you're in webs, is a really good idea. This is a copy of my profile, and it shows that my program is considered a Washington small business, and you would want to make sure that yours is accurate and complete. So later on down the solicitation posting in webs, you will see the solicitation documents. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. Notice the solicitation amendment side is blank, but I guarantee you there will be an amendment posted there, because there's always at least one question, and then that question gets published with the answer in that solicitation amendment section. There might be other amendments that maybe extend the due date or change the pricing calculation or whatever. So you want to always make sure to read and watch for amendments. So let's talk a little bit about strategy. So the first step is to download all of those documents, save them and label them on the date that you downloaded them, especially if you're that one bidder that already has paint solicitation documents on your computer. Put those in a folder labeled old or delete them all together. Get rid of those because they are no longer valid. You have to download the fresh documents and use those to submit your bid. We usually hone in at the beginning on solicitation document as well as Exhibit B. There's always a goldmine of information in Exhibit B. And from these documents, you can make a decision as to whether or not you want to bid. And this bid, no bid decision is a decision that you need to make within your firm, and we'll give you a little tool that can help you make that decision. Then if you decide to bid, you organize your approach, you assemble the bid, and you submit on time. That's the 4-step process. Let's talk a little bit about the checklist. So when you open up that solicitation, go ahead and open up that solicitation if you haven't already. This is where I hand out my gold stars for the day, our interactive section here. So it doesn't read like a romance novel. The solicitation is usually written by very technical people who understand procurement really well, but they're not writing it for your reading pleasure. So it's a little bit dry and it tends to bounce around in terms of like what information you care the most about. And so having a checklist that you pull up at the same time as you're reading the solicitation will really help you. And I know Trina is somewhat old school. She prints off the solicitation, and then do you print off your checklist too, or you have that on your machine? Either way, you can, however what works for you, just to make sure that you have kind of a tool to help you walk through this. So just for today, we're going to help you use this new tool, and then you can make it your own. You can add fields, you can change the language in the template we gave you, you can add your logo to the top or whatever. And this is your tool now. It's in Word, so it's fully editable. You can do whatever you want with it. But for today, if anyone can help me with my little game here, what is the solicitation number? I'm going to put that right on the top of my little checklist here.
While Tiffany is waiting for one of you to answer her question, I want to defend my printing procedure, only because you can make notes in the columns for consideration while you are developing your response. It's very difficult to do that and have it be front and center if you do it digitally.
That's fair. I wasn't knocking the printing. That's fine.
No, I agree that it's old school and it needs to be called out, but it's still the most effective method. So I wanted to bring that
Yeah.
up.
Very good. And you're less distracted too. When I print something out and I have my little hand highlighter or my color-coded pencils or whatever, I'm less likely to be to have my Teams notification be blasting off or be tempted to do Control F and skip to the part I'm most curious about. It really like I have to sit there. So Adrian, you unmuted for a second. I have a feeling that you know the answer to my question.
If I'm understanding correctly, would it be the 08125?
Yeah, ding, 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 gold star. And Jacob, you guys both got it. Thank you. All right, when's the deadline to submit? This is always the second most important thing. Jacob, Jacob, April 1st. What are you looking at, Jacob? I got September 4th.
Is it the old documents?
I don't know. Did anyone want to confirm my September 4th? Did I make that up? Is that true?
No, it's true. What time? Yeah,
Oh,
11.
11:59.
Yeah.
So midnight, but not
Mhm.
midnight, the minute before midnight. And I found that on page 5. So, like I said, a checklist is important because if all you want to know is, do you have time to submit on this thing? And it makes you read 5 pages before you can answer that question, it can be rather distracting in your brain. So, like, you can kind of just okay, thanks, Jacob. You can kind of calm down and just tick through it. The pre-proposal conference date. This is also known as a pre-bid. The official DES pre-bid is
would that be July 30th at 1 o'clock?
Tomorrow, yeah, 1 o'clock. And that's on page 6. Site visit date is not applicable to this solicitation. The Q&A period, we have a former federal contracting officer on our team that calls this the PPI, the pre-proposal inquiry, which is really just the Q&A timeframe. In the federal government, they have to have an acronym for everything. So he always talks about the PPI. Q&A, question and answers, get those in before August 15th. They left you a lot of time to review the solicitation and come up with questions that will enhance your ability to bid. And that's also on page 5. The solicitation issue date of solicitation. Oh, I misread that. But I wanted to point out an acronym that you need to remember. It's called ASB, Apparent Successful Bidder. And this will be announced October 10th, with the final award being made in December, if not before. That seems like they're building in time for that negotiation, that final negotiation, but sometimes it's much faster than that. Is there a reserved award? So kind of a primer for our bid, no bid decision matrix is like, can you be competitive on this solicitation? And it helps to understand who you're going to be competing against and whether or not there's any competitive advantages for firms like yours. And DES has created a competitive advantage for Washington-based small businesses or Washington-based veteran-owned businesses that are certified through the Washington State Department of VA. So that's a big deal. So if you are eligible for either one of those, be sure that your WEBS profile reflects that. And it's not too late to get certified. The Veteran Affairs certifies firms within a week or 2. Shamika is delightful at doing that. And that's all described on page 3. So we're not going to go through the whole checklist, but I hope you kind of understand how to use the checklist and how you could potentially make it your own. I do want to point out that WEBS does not receive your proposals. That's a question we get all the time. It's not an e-bidding platform in that sense. You're going to email your proposal to the email in the solicitation document, and that's outlined in page 8. Sometimes there's size requirements, sometimes there's subject line requirements, that kind of thing. You want to make sure you pay attention to that. How are you going to be evaluated? This is another in your decision about whether or not you can be competitive in bidding this thing, is how are you going to be evaluated? And in this particular solicitation on page 10, it walks through the cost factors. There are no non-cost factors. So for the one firm that bid the other one before, this might be new information to you because this is a change from my understanding of how it was originally solicited. That cost is going to be the primary. And within that cost, there's 520 points for labor and 130 points for your material markup. The other thing, and this is a trick question, because if you could find the economic adjustment clause in the solicitation, you are magic, because it's not in there. It's actually in Exhibit D, the contract. So we want to highlight the fact that DES does a really nice job of giving you what the sample contract is going to look like. And this is where you'll find your insurance requirements, your limitations on subcontracting if they exist, your economic cost adjustments like noted here. And so there doesn't appear to be an economic adjustment that you're allowed to make, with the exception of prevailing wage, which gets adjusted twice a year by L&I. And so they're allowing that to flex up, which is good. But just be aware of that so you know the risk when you're putting together your pricing strategy. Am I locked into this price, or will I be able to fluctuate if the market changes? All right, so that's the checklist. Make it your own. Change the font, add your logo, add lines, use it on every solicitation from here until the future. And you can take that information and then decide to bid. We call it a bid, no bid decision. And it's really based on your company's goals, what you're good at, and your likelihood of success. We can't answer this for you. And that's why we kind of give you that decision matrix, because it forces you to slow down, read the solicitation, because you do not have time to bid on things that you won't win, right? Or you can't win. So it allows you kind of that space to think about your strategy and the why. This is what it looks like when you open up the Excel file I sent you. And again, it's in Excel, so you can fully edit it to make it your own. And it's broken into two questions. The first question is, can we bid? And so you walk through each one of these and you score your firm. And if you're in a larger firm that has maybe a business development person and an owner, and then maybe the people in charge of the staffing the work, they could all fill this out too, and you could have different perspectives. And the business developer who's on commission, for example, they're going to be like, yeah, we can bid. Yeah, let's do it, right? And then the CFO, maybe who's in charge of cash flow, is like, ooh, what are the payment terms, right? So they're going to look at it through a different lens. If you're in a small business and it's just you, then just, it's just you, and that's okay. But you walk through each one of these. So can you meet the technical requirements of the request? And that's going to, maybe you have to go back to that section and reread it, pay really close to the other documents that talk about the scope, talk about the requirements, and then score yourself once you have an understanding of those. Can you meet the schedule requirements? Do you understand the risks associated with this program? When we use the word program, that's another kind of federally type term where for this, like the risks associated with doing business with the state, I guess is another way to frame this. And we know that the Department of Enterprise Services has a long history of doing statewide contracts, and you can typically, if the statewide contract's in existence, you can pull that data and take a look at the robust activity that's happening on it. Since this is a new one, it's a little uncharted territory. We're not quite sure how many people will use it, but at least DES has a good reputation of issuing the statewide contracts and their mandated use by the state agencies. So there's 2 bonus points for you right there. Anyway, we're not going to go through each line, but you can get a sense. 5 being yes, 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 we could totally do that. 1, probably not. And then you can decide on your own based on your score, like, is this too low for us to bother with, or should we go for it? The second question you should ask yourself is, do we want to bid? So is it core to your business? If you are a general contractor and painting is 10% of what you do now, do you want to have this as part of your core business? Because it's kind of a bigger contract to take on. And can your business handle that growth in that one sector, I guess would be a way to say that. And you would score yourself on these questions here. And Trina helped develop this tool. I imagine you have more to say about it and the use of it. Do you want to chime in?
No, I don't, not for this, because I think this is a very good overview of what it should look like. I go through this with my clients and help them customize it to the things that are very important and specific to their areas. So if this looks like something that would help you, I recommend you reach out to your counselor and ask them to help you on that. But I did want to bring up something that I think we should highlight at this point as a part of the bid no bid decision, and that is the number of reserved awards is up to 2 main awards and up to 4 reserved awards. But one of the things about the reserved award is that the limits on subcontracting for the reserved awards are only small businesses. So you want to figure that into your bid and no bid decision for those of you that are smaller, that are heavily reliant on maybe a large business partner, or you have a mentor protege agreement, that your subcontractors need to meet that small business standard that the state has set.
Is it small or veteran?
It says if subcontractors are utilized on a reserved award contract, those subcontractors must qualify as Washington small business and or certified veteran-owned businesses. So it could be veteran or small.
Great. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's a really good point. And the federal term is similarly situated. I'm glad DS isn't using that term because nobody can actually say it out loud.
Yeah.
Similarly situated. Okay. So we're zooming back out. Where are we again? So you've read the documents, you've zoned in on Exhibit B, you've decided to bid or not using that matrix. Now it's time to organize your approach and assemble your bid. So let me just share some top tips and then we'll answer your questions. So please ask your questions in the chat or hover over that unmute button and hop in here in a second. But my top tips, to summarize everything we just talked about the last 38 minutes, is ask questions and identify barriers to your participation now. Keep in mind that the procurement professionals at Department of Enterprise Services are experts in procurement. They're not experts in paint. They probably know a little bit about paint services because they've been at this for a while, but they might not know something about your industry that's prohibiting you from competing effectively or from, recouping all your costs, or I don't know what it might be, but identify those barriers and communicate those to DES now. Build a strategy for winning. So that takes a little bit of time. And I know that you're all probably small businesses that are stretched for time, but that involves, but setting that aside can really help position your firm to be successful. If you're just trying to throw a bid together at the very last minute, it's something you're locking your firm into for a long time. And we want you to be strategic with that. Ask for a debrief, regardless of whether or not you win. You only have 3 days to ask for that. So once the apparent successful bidder list gets published, respond to that immediately and say, can I please have a debrief? And this will help you understand what you did, what you could do better to improve your chances of winning the next one. If you didn't win, don't write off, oh, I'll just never do business again because successful contractors might need subcontractors, or not all agencies use the statewide contracts for what they need. And for that public works procurement, the stuff that's considered public works, that's still going to go through the roster system or through another channel. So this is mainly for ordinary maintenance type painting services. So there's still going to be a lot of paint that needs to be applied. You want to save all documents with the date you received them. That is just becoming increasingly important as solicitations have amendments or they get canceled and then republished. And lastly, we already talked about it, but double check that you are Washington in-state small and that your webs is all up to date, ready to go. And Trina wanted me to point out to ask for a bid tab when requesting for the debrief. And I think DES does a nice job of issuing that bid tab at the time they announce the successful bidder. Not all agencies do, which makes it really hard to decide, your recourse steps at that point. All right, this is my information here. Just a plug for our newsletter. If you want to get involved, but you're not quite ready for advising, you can just sign up for our newsletter there. And if you want to become a client, you go to washingtonapex.org. And with that, we have 19 minutes reserved for your questions. There are no silly questions. Let us have it. We'd love to hear, was this information useful? What are your plans? And how can we kind of help it make it more clear for you? Okay, thank you, Jacob. Is there a rough, you must have been typing all these the whole time and then you just hit send. I'm really impressed. Okay. Jacob asks, is there a rough estimate in revenue this kind of contract brings? No. Typically, yes. Typically on a statewide contract, we can predict because there was a statewide contract before it, or we can look at the other spend to determine. But when looking at the other spend, I can't tell what's ordinary maintenance and what's not. I don't know. And that's an excellent question to bring up tomorrow at the official pre-bid of DES, see what their market research is telling them. Nobody knows for sure, but they probably have a better handle on that than I do. His second question, do you know the government pay schedule, net 30? Good question. Trina, where would we find that? I'll try and find it.
Yeah, I didn't read the pay schedule in here, but again, another one of those questions you want to ask to them because they are responsible for actually responding in a way that's official, and the responses you get from Tiffany and I are going to be our best guess and what they've done traditionally. So All of the questions, Jacob, that you've actually put in here are good ones to submit formally to the email address that's in the proposal, as well as ask in person tomorrow at the pre-bid conference.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Trina. Excellent point. It does appear that there are some invoicing and payment terms inside Exhibit D on page 15, and I can share my screen with what I'm reading here real time, except I just lost it. Oh, here we go. Invoicing and payment. Let me share my screen again. Maybe we can help answer this or improve your question to really hone in on the parts that are unclear. So, invoicing and payment. There's no timing, right? Like a prompt payment clause, is that what we're looking for?
I think he's looking for time. How often are they able to bill or invoice?
I'm gonna do a Control F for the word prompt. Whoa, if I could type prompt payment, prompt payments. Okay, purchaser's payment is due within 30 days of invoice. So read this clearly, you know, on your own time, and if there's still areas that are unclear, then please ask away. And I know just in general in public works, a lot of times the prevailing wage requirements are that you do weekly payroll to the employees, but then you don't get paid until after 30 days of a monthly invoice. That creates a cash flow that you need to prepare for. And we have partners in our network that offer cash flow projection tips and I guess templates and all sorts of advising related to that, as well as access to capital if you need a line of credit to be able to handle the public works work. Cedric.
So there are, and so in the contracts and in the procurements that we do, there are concessions that can be made periodically. So yes, so it may be a net 30, but if you complete the job early, you can engage for early payment. So there are, I can't think of the term, milestones, milestone payments that can be done, and that will be something that you could negotiate or talk about once you have been awarded the contract, because you would have an onboarding meeting with the contract specialist, and so that will be something that you can discuss at that point in time. Because yes, we know, there's no point if you did a 5 or 10 day job that you should have to wait, the net 30. So you can request early pay as long as the milestones have been met. They have said that they typically don't say no to that, but that will be a question to ask during the onboarding.
Great. Thank you, Cedric. And then have a plan B, and I'd be happy to pair you up with a business advisor about that too. Okay, how are we bidding? A draft is rough hourly costs with materials per square feet, etc. Okay, yeah. How are they bidding? So we'll do Jacob. While Trina's answering this one, because I know you honed in on that when you're doing your review. Do you want to take that and I'll look up my resources?
First, I want to go back to what we were talking about with the payment. So there's a when you're able to invoice is a different question from how fast do you get paid once your invoice has been accepted. So when you do pose that question, and I really hope that you do, Jacob, make sure that you are clear about the frequency and at what juncture can you invoice as a question, and then ask about the frequency. What that clause was talking about was once you've submitted the invoice and it's been accepted, how frequently or how fast can you get your payment back? And so those are two timing questions I think should be called out separately. But how are we bidding? A draft is a rough hourly cost with materials per square foot. I how are we bidding? I think that they want a sort of percentage of the wage determination. They want you to bid on the percentage. It's not I don't believe it's an hourly cost as much as it is a percentage of what you're going to the base rate, the wage determination rate, that's the standard. And then the materials cost is a percentage on top of what your costs are on materials. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I'm not sure if you could rephrase how are we bidding into something.
The
Are you
answer,
bringing up the spreadsheet,
I
Tiffany?
did, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, the answer might be in Exhibit C, but read this, sorry, read this closely and see if you have additional questions to bring to the pre-bid session tomorrow.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit.
Percentage markup over the public works rate. Or, I'm sorry, above the prevailing wage rate, PW.
I think there's an example at the bottom that shows how they're expecting to receive the cost information.
Okay, yeah. So if you're in the Olympic area,
Yeah.
this is an example of bidder B. They're proposing a 48% markup over the prevailing wage, and then over materials 20%. And they're locked in, as far as I understand, to this markup over materials for the life of the contract. I could double check me on that in Exhibit D, but know that if your material costs are fluctuating due to outside forces like tariffs, it might be something to consider in your pricing strategy. Adrian has his hand up.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Thank you. So I'm kind of like a lot of this material is like really new. So we're a general contractor. We mainly focus on weatherization at the very beginning. And we had the privilege to work a little bit with like mainly like private clients, but then we trickled into like how to say like housing repair programs. And then we're starting to like start educating ourselves first on how to participate in like housing authorities. I've never seen none of this material that you guys are sharing, and off the bat, it's very helpful. But I guess my question really stems like kind of like trying us to have an objective to like first educate ourselves on what this environment looks like. The point system for like the bidding process is something that I've seen in the past, trying to like participate in different environments. But for full transparency, I never even understood what exactly it means to be on a point system with like a bidding structure. So, and then you talk about topics about like, okay, if you need some kind of funding, there's like loans and all this stuff. So all of that is essentially like information that I have very minimal interaction with. So what would your suggestion be for like a smaller company at us being in this certain position?
Trina, you want to take that?
Yeah, I think that this is an excellent time for you to reach out and become a client at Apex Counselor. We go through it step by step, and this session is really a snapshot to get you guys going and thinking about the important elements. But your counselor can help walk you through each part of the solicitation and each part of the process and tell you what's what and how it applies to you. Because they do an assessment of your company specifically when you first meet with us. And then from there, you make the decision whether you're going to go or no go, and then you start to build your response. So the newness of it is there's nothing you can do about it. It's your first time, right? But they can give you enough considerations and enough concerns that make that newness a little bit less scary for you. The process is complicated, and one of the reasons why we exist as an organization is to make it less complicated and less scary and sort of help you understand it a little bit better. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, of course, of course. The first thing I'm going to do is register, so you can count on that. Thank you.
Okay, I did my
I
job.
think, yeah, I would add to that a little bit that if this is kind of a beast of an opportunity compared to other opportunities that might exist out there for your firm. Like I mentioned early on, that city, the example of the city of Kent needed somebody to paint or coat a shelter of some sort at a park. Like that seems like pretty easy. It was $8,000 or whatever. Like that's going to be a little bit less of an undertaking, that type of solicitation for somebody brand new to the marketplace, with a little less risk, right? Because you're locking yourself into that one picnic shelter. So it's a little bit less daunting and less scary. And so ideally you would have some of those under your belt, but don't let that dissuade you from exploring this seriously, because it is a good opportunity. So kind of but let's also, I guess, with your Apex advisor, explore those other opportunities that might be out there.
Awesome. Yeah. First things first, I'll definitely register, and everything was very helpful. I think these charts, regardless of participating in these environments, I'll definitely start incorporating them in what we do on our day to day. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It looks like David, you have your camera on, and Cedric's hand is up. Could we do David and then Cedric?
Sure.
David, you're muted, but did you have something to share? No, you're good.
I see that you're recording this, and I missed most of it. I
Okay.
was just wondering, how would I go back and watch it if I
Yeah, I usually send it to my YouTube person who uploads it. She's got more patience than I do to upload to YouTube, and then we send the link out. But I'll go ahead and just send the link directly to you, David, immediately after it finishes its little processing thing. So then you can watch from the beginning. No problem. Cedric.
So Adrian, I think you brought up a very good point. So how maybe cities and municipalities, they have their own process for their contracting templates versus how we, the state, have ours. And trying to remember and know all of them, it will drive you crazy at some point. Um, and yes, like you said, there's a lot of information out there, and I know with these, you're kind of being thrown a lot of information at one time. But when we're dealing with these, that's why it's very important, and it's also beneficial. Sorry, now my son's in here with his tablet. Hey, can you go back that way? Thank you.
You can't hear him. You're fine.
See, now he threw out my train of thought. But that's why like attending the pre-bid conference is also important, because you will have the contract manager or the contract specialist that would be on the call, and that they would go through. They more so focus on the bid tabbing, which is the document that Tiffany and Trina showed you, and then you can ask specific questions, about it, and then they can give you that answer. Uh, and so not only is that informational for someone trying to decide if they want to bid or not, but it also kind of gives you that learning or that education about, okay, well, this is how the state does their process. Because for us, all of our bid tabs are more or less the same. They may have more tabs or more sections, but they're generally formulated the same way. So yeah, like I said, whether you choose to do it or not, and like I said, you can attend any pre-bid conferences that you want to get an understanding, but definitely utilize the Apex counselors. They are very knowledgeable, and I am behind them 100%.
Thanks, Cedric.
Awesome.
Great.
So just
Anybody? Oh, please go ahead.
sorry. So just to clarify, it necessarily wouldn't be frowned upon if we, like, for example, for like the meeting tomorrow, like it wouldn't be frowned upon if we just attend and just kind of express that we're here just to observe and educate ourselves. It's not like essentially it would be frowned upon to participate like that.
Not at all. Everybody's invited. You could
Mhm.
even bring your sister or your cousin and get to, yeah, everybody's invited. Come on in. The water is
Mhm.
warm. Yeah, they want as many people as possible educated about the key components of this solicitation. So
Perfect.
yeah, you're not
Awesome.
obligating or communicating anything more than interest. So yep.
Perfect. Yeah, because my perspective in all of this is that we're eager to have any opportunity to work. Like I think like a lot of people, but it's stuff that I'm understanding there's like certain standards, certain procedures, and that's what I want peace of mind that I'd rather educate ourselves, learn very well the rules and the constraints, and then start walking a more stable set. But I'll definitely attend tomorrow and listen and see what we can learn. And thank you again for everything.
Yeah, sure, Adrian, thanks. All right, Jacob wants to know when the bid is due. Shout it out. I'm not going to do that though. Make you read it. All right, any last questions? We got 3 minutes left. Somebody can shout it out. Who wants to shout out when it's due? Don't be late.
It's in September.
September. Oh, you gave him a clue.
Fourth.
So you have a whole month.
September 4th. That's right. And keep in mind Labor Day is in there. Isn't that Labor Day? Somewhere in there. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yep, it's pretty serious deadline. There by law they can't accept your proposal after that deadline. So, thank you for coming and for the excellent questions, for the chat, for the chitty chat, and for lightening the mood there, Jacob. I appreciate all of you. I wish you the best of luck. Attend the pre-bid tomorrow. Let us know how it goes, and yeah, good luck to you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brad.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.